Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Monday, October 6th, 2025, the day of the October supermoon, huge moon low in the sky tonight. Kind of said to be a day that if you, have arguments with people, regularly, you shouldn't contact those people today. It's kind of a high volatility couple of days here. And I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. I'll just jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel today. I always start off by saying thank you so much to everybody supporting the channel. You make it happen, and I'm so thankful. Donations, prayers, news tips, all of it. This You Are Free TV community is just, I pray for all of you all the time. So thanks so much, and we're going to jump in here with the news, and I'll get to my sponsor at the end of the channel. So end of the video. So yeah, huge weekend, huge day today. Of course, we have the Egypt on the Red Sea there, the peace talks here, the technical agreements surrounding the surrender of Hamas and the peace deal that Israel won't annex or take over Gaza, and the Dubai-style Riviera project, right? So I'm going to get into that a bit here, the machinations behind that, but still no outcome yet. It sounds like Hamas is scrambling to try to find all the corpses of the people murdered, and for the hostage release situation. And meanwhile, you've got the ISIS on the ground there in Gaza, working directly with the Israeli government. So just another layer of the next generation of jihadi whatever they're going to come up with. But anyhow, let's jump in here with the news. So over the weekend we had, of course, Trump with the 250th anniversary of the Navy, and an all-day affair there at the naval station in Norfolk, and a huge crowd, of course, of the Navy, and the speeches were amazing. Trump was amazing, and it seemed like it really rejuvenated him, and he really needed it. And so I'm so glad to see him kind of in more vigorous standards, and it's, I guess sometimes you have to go and stand on an aircraft carrier, right? Him and Melania getting off the helicopter onto the aircraft carrier, and then Trump donning Navy jacket and standing right there on the deck, not up in the rooms above, where the commanders stand and give all the orders, standing on the deck, watching all the flyovers of the Navy, the Air Force, flying over, and right near the edge there with Melania, just super incredible physical fortitude. It is acting like an amazing seaman there. It's a very intense environment standing there on the deck. You've got the incredible noise of the planes flying over. You've got the jets and the sea spray. It's quite something, and I think it invigorated him. He even got on the main speaker there. It's like what is that called? Let me put on the glasses here. The IMC central sort of radio that you'd have, like the officers get on in the morning to talk to all 5,000 of the naval, the Navy men there on the ship in the morning, telling them, what they're going to wear that day, what the operations are. Trump gets on and talks to all of them on the regular intercoms, saying, this is your commander in chief, and doing a great job. So fantastic, 250th celebration, and just great. So that aside, okay, we have so much news going on that I'm going to just jump in here with it. And so this I'm going to put out first because I just think it's so exciting. So we had in the Czech Republic the incredible win of General Andrej Babiš, who is known as the Czech Trump, winning the prime minister election there in the Czech Republic. And his whole platform as a populist Trump of the Czech Republic is that he is basically, it's an anti-Ukraine war stance against the EU and their desire to create World War III, and going against the EU in this, standing with Slovakia and Hungary. And so, fantastic, awesome, amazing win there in the Czech Republic. We're so happy for the people, and this is just a great way to keep building this resistance to World War III in Europe, and against NATO and all of it, the EU Commission. And so it's all very interesting as we see people like, we've got Putin's communications guy. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Putin's communication guy coming out and saying, oh, he's basically doing Q whisperer type stuff. He's, his communication guy is coming out sort of Socratic method style and putting out communications where he is saying, what if Russia and China are actually working with Trump to take down the New World Order? Okay, so putting this out there, interesting to just be putting out there. I think they're getting to the point here where things are winding down, as we're seeing the French government collapse today as well, that Europe has no money to fight this war that they're so intent on ginning up, and it's all collapsing for Ukraine. And so you're getting these kind of Q whispers out of Putin's government from Dmitriev, basically saying, that we're fighting. What if we're alongside China, actually working with Trump? And I spoke about in my last video about how Xi has lost power in China, and basically their generals are running the show and wanting to do a reform China sort of movement here and go against this crazy militarism and total tyranny. So, that's a long shot for China, but it's very interesting to see that this is all happening down to the point of, during the United Nations General Assembly, you've got, high officials flying to DC, getting messages to Trump, all of this. So very interesting to see this all going on as France's government is falling and Macron's numbers are in the absolute tanker. Everybody hates him in France. They hate him, for one, because he raised their retirement age, their social, where they get all their retirement money, Social Security style, way better bennies than us, for doing probably a lot less work. They, and no offense intended, but just saying, okay, they get a super sweetheart deal compared to the U.S. And again, everybody should, but Macron, wanted to stave off, total collapse and the government being completely broke after the Islamification situation and the paying for all of the people that used to live in the colonies of France coming and taking over France, Muslim jihad style. And there is the collapse in the government over the weekend. So Macron's trying to hang on till 2027 for the next elections, when he really should be having elections now. And so he just keeps rotating prime ministers in and out who keep failing. And the most recent one, Sebastian Lukomu, he was in only 28 days. And then about 14 hours after announcing his cabinet and forming the government, he got immediately a no confidence vote in the whole thing. He resigns, and you get the collapse again of the government in France. The people are irate again about the Muslim invasion. They're irate about the government being completely broke and them doing nothing to build up the French economy that is in complete shambles. And you juxtapose this to, of course, President Trump working like a cyclone here in the U.S. To save the economy from its planned demolition of the globalists, and $17 trillion in investment, and just massively working so hard to try to get a foothold so America can survive and thrive, versus these inept globalist parasites that just want to suck the living everything out of the people of Europe, who are absolutely done with it, as we're seeing hugely in the UK, Ireland, across Europe, done with all of this. And of course, the wonderful election of the new Czech prime minister. And so, very interesting, because Marine Le Pen, of course, is really who everybody wants, and she'd be due to win in 2027 if she can, win against this fake lawfare, indictment she went through, where, as a prime minister, as a MP, member of parliament in France, you also have a member of parliament office, of course, in Brussels at, the EU center there. The heart of the beast, and all kinds of subterfuge and corruption went on to misspend her campaign money and do stuff behind her back that set her up for this. And she's appealing, and if she wins, which we all pray for, then France could absolutely go. It's just a waiting out game. Can there be World War III before Macron has to step down? And that's what they're going for. So prayers for that, and we go on from there. We're going to, I think, jump in here into the, as we're looking at what's going on in Egypt today, and of course the 20-point plan and the Board of Peace and all of this, with this unelected technocratic overlords to come in and reform Gaza in the shape and image of Dubai, which is exactly what it is. It is taking, a Dubai playbook of development and making it a technocratic state, and also with special economic zones, etc. And the interesting thing here with Tony Blair, of course, being proposed by Trump and how he got roped into that, and hopefully that's a main sticking point here, is that Tony Blair, the Tony Blair Institute, has received $350 million from Larry Ellison, right? The owner of Oracle, and now TikTok, and now Paramount, and CBS, and everything, and just the whole giving over of massive social media news power to the state of Israeli intelligence. And within this, so he gave $350 million to the Tony Blair Institute. And it was the Financial Times that actually first uncovered this. And basically, this was about there being this luxury investment zone of Gaza, the Gaza Riviera, their plan that they started quite a while ago, and that this was constructed by Israeli businessmen who made this plan out of the Boston Consulting Group. Okay, and so we're going to get into more about that. But this was about, in the plan, as I read it out before, I don't have it next to me now, but where there's a special economic zone, and it's all about technocratic investment into the creation of this Gaza Riviera modeled on Dubai developments. And the whole accusation here is that the Tony Blair Institute had, worked hand in glove to create this plan before it ever became the plan. Think Jared Kushner, think of all these people. And so as we look at this, and it's very, it's just basically you genocide of people, you clear out the area, and you build a new technocratic state on top of it that is built on what Dubai is. And so it's very disturbing. But you have the Boston Consulting Group detailing that this would be, the Gaza Riviera would be modeled on Dubai developments. It would have blockchain-based trade zones, okay, blockchain-based trade zones. And of course, we know with CBDC, and we know with social credit score, all of it, they require blockchain apparatus in order to function in low-tax manufacturing hubs. And we know in the 20-point plan, it was put out that there will be a different way of taxing or tariffing certain economic areas of this new Gaza Riviera. So that all is happening as these Egypt talks are going down today, and nothing massive coming out about this yet. So this was originally said to be called the Great Trust, and Tony Blair is kind of on the hook with all of this coming out that, you know, this is all massively organized in advance when there wasn't 70,000 or however many Gazans already dead. And so yeah, so there we go. So, you know, going from there and just focusing here in on, as I mentioned, with Larry Ellison and being huge funder of the IDF, huge funder of Israel intelligence, all of it, and getting to claim the new thing, like that he's the richest person in the world, beat out Musk, whatever. It's all complete lies. There's total trillionaires, of course, out there, in the Rothschilds and the royals out of the Netherlands, et cetera, et cetera. The Vanguard puppet masters and BlackRock puppet masters running Larry Fink. But when we look at this here with David Ellison, I want to bring attention to a great article that came out in the Gray Zone, of course, doing such great work here with the Gray Zone. But talking about David Ellison, Larry Ellison's son, I had mentioned his daughter was that one involved in, is it called FTX, that Ponzi scheme, crypto, where you had Friedman, you know, go to prison. He was in the same cell as P. Diddy for a while there, and it was all about weird sex stuff in the Bahamas, and then stealing billions from people and creating Ponzi scheme and laundering it, and just, you know, super connected with Tether, which is now just fine. Tether's fine. It's great, even though it, you know, is used to fund massive money laundering for the New World Order global deep state and, you know, jihadis, et cetera, et cetera. Well, David Ellison, the son, is he is now the owner of CBS, and of course that's Paramount, is also the owner. And so basically, what's coming out here through the Gray Zone, which is just fantastic, is that David Ellison, we have him meeting with top IDF general to basically form this whole spying on Americans through social media and media in general network. And this gets into, you know, we've talked in the past about this thing called the 12 tribes, which was their own name they gave themselves for these 12 Jewish Israel connected billionaires, okay, who formed this funding mechanism to create this whole thing run out of, I think it was out of Germany, where they had this fund that goes into everything that we spoke about a few days ago about Netanyahu with his influencers paying them $7,000 per post, you know, saying we have drones, you know, but, you know, we're just talking about social media. We're talking about TikTok, right? And Larry Ellison, of course, with Lachlan Murdoch, of course, going in for to be the big owners on TikTok as well. And so what we get here with this 12 tribes is that you had the 13th tribe, which was the Israeli intelligence government, and that they would basically guide it all, but it had to be, of course, non-governmental and keep it on the hush-hush. And so we get David Ellison, Larry Ellison being one of these billionaires that are part of this 12 tribes for the censorship, and also one of those. I will link the article below so you can see all of them, but definitely the Rothschild family named as one of them. They could be kind of the one ring to rule them all, right? But they're in there as well. And so basically it's very interesting, because what we have here is you get David Ellison putting in Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss, she is calls herself a Zionist fanatic, and that she has been in charge and created the what's called the Free Press. This totally technocratic supporting ultra Zionist rag, okay, that works closely with University of Texas at Austin, very closely with Alex Karp out of Palantir, and that she gets put in as the editor-in-chief at CBS now that it's bought up by Paramount, and that was allowed to go through. So this is huge, as we're seeing this sort of, you know, close pincer movement here between mainstream media, that includes CBS News, all of it, Paramount, and the you know, the social media of TikTok, et cetera, and all the pressure we've seen going on with X doing stuff now we're now seeing on TikTok, different levels of censorship going on there already. And so basically this 12 tribes thing, and I'll get back into Barry Weiss here in a second. I just want to make sure I remember to fill this out a little bit, which it's to fund Israeli surveillance corporations. Okay, that it was to fund these Israeli corporations that are aligned. They're made up of retired Mossad and intelligence out of Israel. Think, Pegasus Software and Ehud Barak and Gina Haspel, and everything that happened with, how the surveillance went down before October 7th, and who was running that. Okay, things like Black Cube and all of it that we've been covering here for years. But basically, it was all about targeting Americans, most specifically and importantly, who are anti-Israel. And they name, of course, the Divest movement and the pro-Palestine movement specifically, but it's also very much towards the right. It's evolved to that as it's become more and more apparent the harms that's going on through Israeli intelligence to America and the world, and people like Charlie Kirk, perhaps. But we go on and just getting more into Barry Weiss here. We get in the New York. She was working at the New York Times for a while at the opinion section, and she actually had to go from the New York Times because she was too pro-Israel for them. And during her time while she was at the New York Times at the opinion section, she targeted in her writings a Palestinian scholar and pundit, named Rafit Rafit Alarir, who she basically said was, basically she accused them of something about denying some of the October 7th stuff, is what I believe is what happened. And then what ends up happening to this person is they're murdered by an Israeli drone. Okay. So it goes from New York Times with Barry Weiss, and then in criticizing this person, and then they're dead by an Israeli drone strike. And so we have to remember, so many people getting so much crap for saying, hey, this sounds like, an act of war against American citizens by Israeli intelligence, and what Netanyahu said in his video that has been widely spread about, influencers having to go after TikTok, go after anybody who is anti-Israel, which just means you're talking about all the horrors that are going on in the concentration of power and money over the media, censorship, and this warfare that is completely unconventional, of going around and breaks all Geneva Conventions, breaks all ethical warfare standards, going around assassinating everybody, right? And so that person was killed by a drone. And of course, in that video that Netanyahu was talking to his 7,000 per post paid influencers with this huge fund out of Germany, that interesting that he mentions, and we have drones, by the way, but we won't talk about that right now. And so I just wanted to point that out. So Barry Weiss, who is huge in this Austin, Texas, who I guess Alex Karp out of Palantir is a huge supporter of UT at Austin, that we get this founding of the free press that is hugely connected to University at Austin. And they read things like The Technological Republic by Palantir CEO Alex Karp. The Technological Republic is read instead of Plato's Republic. This whole push towards technocracy, which we see specifically lined up in the 20-point plan. There'll be a technocratic body, right? A technocratic unelected body that will be running things. And so it's very interesting because we get free press now founded by, of course, Barry Weiss, also purchased by Paramount by Ellison, right? For $150 million, $150 million for this free press rag. And then Barry Weiss gets to be editor-in-chief at CBS. It's just massive, really huge. So I wanted to make sure to mention that, and I will move on from there. We'll get back to it as more news comes out of what happened today with, we do have Trump. It's very interesting. The people in Israel, being interviewed on the street that I've seen, they're saying there was huge, like, in Tel Aviv on the beach, they made a huge installation seen from the air that was making fun of Netanyahu and saying, Trump, don't be fooled again. And the people on the street in Tel Aviv are saying the same thing. So the Jewish people in Tel Aviv are saying, Trump, don't be fooled by what, Israel says. We've had enough. We don't want more war in Gaza. We don't want war in Iran. We want this over and done. Don't be fooled. Get it done. Get the hostages released and let us be done with it. And so people seeming to be very in support of Israel being out of what's going on with Gaza, and yet they aren't, because the investors involved behind the Tony Blair Institute and Boston Consulting Group are massively Israeli businessmen. So I will leave that there and we'll get back to it. But I did want to mention, of course, today we have Dan Bongino, assistant FBI, assistant director. He has stuck it out. He's still there. It was hugely looking like he was going, but he is still there with the other assistant, okay, former AG of Missouri, doing behind the scenes heavy lifting. But Bongino goes and has the task of alerting the Senate and Congress, I believe through the Intelligence committees today, that all the people who were objects of spying, Tommy Tuberville, just tons, but basically these 17 senators, multiple Congress people who were spied on by, in a total act of treason by the FBI under the Operation Arctic Frost, right, which was to created by the, in the whole put together by the intelligence during the Biden administration to create the J6 massive PSYOP that became the aftermath of J6, so the creation of the select committee, the creation of putting Jack Smith in charge of going after Trump, trying to get this impeachment stuff going, and spying on the FBI, spying on with their phones and emails, Congress members and senators, not to mention everybody else, okay, in America. And so that's out and breaking. $50 million of taxpayer money going to Jack Smith's investigations. And so let's pray for the indictments of the people involved. And I think, we're probably seeing a lot of flipping in the FBI, and we've seen some of it already coming to reveal that Fedsurrection definitely had this, close to 300 operatives in the crowd that day, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing this very interesting same thing with James Comey. You get James Comer out of House Oversight pulling the subpoena for James Comey today to do with him coming to testify about the Epstein operation, Epstein intelligence, Epstein knowledge. And basically they're coming out and saying, oh, James Comey said he knows nothing, he has no information, so we've pulled the subpoena, okay? And I just believe this leads, continues to lead into this situation of there being Comey flipping up, right? That there is some deal being made for Comey, with Comey, for months and months. And that's how Comey has operated forever in all of the roles he's been in. So he seems like he's trying to make a good case for himself by building intelligence against everyone else. May those indictments come ASAP, because as we all say, burning daylight, even though there's incredible amounts being done, it is every day. That's why Trump is so beleaguered and tired, because there is just an incredible amount going on. And so that's why we hear, Trump saying, well, I could invoke that Insurrection Act, Portland in Oregon seems like a really different animal, right? And we get, what's her name? Karen Immergott, the judge out of Portland, who apparently also sits on the FISA court. Okay, she's also a federal judge on the FISA court. How is she still How is she still there? What's going on? I'm gonna keep looking into that, but it looks like she's been on there, I think, since 2019. So for entertainment purposes only, I'm gonna get deeper into that. So Karen Immergut, what Trump is saying here is it looks like, that Portland is, and Stephen Miller backing him up, that this is a legal insurrection that's going on. They're literally denying executive power here in this total right to control mayhem in the streets when it's directed towards uh, police enforcement and federal enforcement of the law. And so we'll see what goes down there. There's, you get the Chicago mayor and the governor, both making Civil War type comments. Brandon Johnson, the mayor, picking a very squirrely and somewhat controlled uh, Chicago Police Department chief, and maybe we'll get into that now for a second. But let's see, let me get him. Yeah. So he's making this insurrection. This might be a Civil War moment. We should try to fight that again. So it's just anarchy, New World Order globalists versus the Constitution and the American people. And so basically saying that we need a Civil War 2.0 rematch, Brandon Johnson, but who he picked for his chief of police was Larry Snelling, and you're getting uh, the National Police Union people, speaking, so disgustedly about what happened, where the CPD, Chicago Police, would not come and help and aid the ICE officers who were being surrounded and being, just dangerously surrounded uh, by the rioters, the people probably paid to do what they're doing. But Larry Snelling, he was brought in by the PSA, which is basically a community commission to ensure that whoever the police chief is going to go along with this not policing initiative of the mayor. And so he was out basically saying, hey, we have to obey the welcoming city ordinance, that is elected by our city council, that we're not allowed to coordinate with ICE. That's the law of our land, and we're not allowed to go against, of course, the sanctuary city laws in this state. Okay, and so this is the guy. So this guy got entrapped basically back in 1997. Well, they did a sting operation. So it's a long time ago now, but you have to wonder how much control by the short hairs they get you once you get caught out for stuff. But him and I think 3 other police officers entrapped, and this gets into some weird Masonic stuff here too. But Snelling and 3 other CPD officers were trying to get a formerly convicted, I don't know if this was like um, a CI, like confidential informant, or who it was, but they were basically trying to get them an illegal gun that they could use, which is bizarre. They had to go to some guy, and they tried to get this guy to get the gun and put it in a hole in a tree behind his girlfriend's house. And they entrapped him into it, and they said, hey, we've got all these drugs we're going to plant on you if you don't do this, and we're going to drag you back into jail, and that's what's going to happen. And basically, that guy ratted them out, and they handed him a card that had this Masonic symbolism on it, and it said, what did it say? Let's see if I wrote that down. Often tried, never denied. Okay. And it was this card with one of the officers' names on it that was connected to this Masonic situation. And so basically, he reported them, and they were caught by internal affairs, and they got brought up, and they basically uh, probably have been controlled ever since to do what they're told to do. And so this was quite a long time ago, but I think it's important to basically just say these are the type of people that that we're dealing with. And so we'll see what goes down. We'll see what's going to keep coming. Uh, and so from there, I want to mention this situation with Abigail Spanberger, right? Abigail Spanberger, right? Running for governor in Virginia. We've seen the whole thing with Jay Jones running for AG. He's called by RAGA, the Republican AGs Association, as the most radical AG nominee ever. Okay, and Jay Jones, he was the one who basically put out those texts back in 22 against his opponent Gilbert, and wanting to kill Gilbert and his wife and children, and these just really sick, disgusting things, and how it's like it's just this common way of speaking that, and that it's an AG saying they want to murder their opponent, their family, their children. And that's what's so sick and disturbing about things like Mamdani, about things like Muslimification of the West, about things like the radical DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, controlling the city council if Mamdani gets elected in New York. I'm jumping around here, but these are the people who think like this, all the Soros DAs, the Soros funded AGs. And I'm sure that the more money about Jay Jones is going to come out soon after all of this. He married a woman named Mavis Ba. Um, she's a children of immigrants from Kazakhstan and Ghana, Jana Ba and Dr. Anthony Ba. Um, and and so always very interesting to see these connections, but you just see it with Mamdani and his wife as well. And and so we look at all of this and we wonder, what's going on. And you get Abigail Spanberger running, of course, for governor there in Virginia, and she used to be a congressperson, Democrat, ex-CIA, total deep state player, Abigail Spanberger, and questionable about the money aspect with her as well, of course. But something that's come out around her, and I'll link article below where you can also check that out, is that, and that it's just coming out to try to let people know who this person is, who was in Congress and now trying to run for governor and was CIA hugely. Well, back in 2002 and 2003, she was working at the Saudi school in Virginia, in Northern Virginia. So this was the Islamic Saudi Academy in 2002, 2003. Okay, so right after 9/11, she goes down as working with the Saudis, totally the only school, Muslim school in the US completely funded outside the country at that time. Now there's just a gazillion of them. But back then, this was huge, and it's Northern Virginia. It's right outside DC. It's the whole 9 yards down the street from CIA HQ. And so the Islamic Saudi Academy, and this is like uh, Loudoun County, right? And the people are just like, what's going on with this Saudi Academy? Like, it's expanding, it's getting bigger. It's totally Muslim. They are jihadis, and they're teaching hate and all of it. And she went to work there, supposedly not in her CIA capacity, which would be, obviously it was. And so she worked at this school for these 2 years, and the Saudi school at that time was completely linked with Hamas, and jihadi graduates that came on to be suicide BOM BERs in different operations. as well as just massive part of, specifically with Hamas as well. And you have to remember, this is when Hamas kicking up huge, right? It's getting really big, with it being created by the Israeli government with the CIA, MI6, to take away there being any possibility of there being a civilian run Palestinian government. You just think it's like Robin, right? And his murder, assassination by people, so many people blame that on Netanyahu, including his wife, right? And him coming to a solution of a two-party state, and they had, Hamas was to do away with that, to make sure there could not be a two-party state, in that they would constantly have this jihad in Palestine. And so Abigail Spanberger's in there in working with Hamas at the Islamic Saudi Academy, and basically CIA jihadi school, all right, training for Mossad, who was all over the Pentagon, right? Just as we hear that Mossad was all over the Pentagon right before the 12-day war, trying to scream, and yell to get Trump to do what they wanted to do. But during 9/11, even though you also had even Rumsfeld coming out and saying, the Mossad were in control of the Pentagon, okay, and created this whole 7 countries in 7 years to topple them, and to go for the Greater Israel Project, which is being squashed right now by this Gaza Interruptus, right? By this Board of Peace, by what Trump is doing. And Trump, when he was on the aircraft carrier there, speaking to all of the enlisted Navy men and women, he said, one of the wars we're going to end soon is this 3,000-year-old war, okay, to do with Israel. So very interesting speech coming out of there. One of the people involved here at this Islamic Saudi Academy, where again, Abigail Spanberger, former CIA, working for the deep state, former congresswoman, now trying to be governor of Virginia with Jay Jones as her AG, okay, is one of the people associated with the school was Musa Mohammed Abu Marzouk. And he literally is the first leader of Hamas, okay, in 1997. And so this is who we're dealing with. These are the people, okay, the first chairman of Hamas Political Bureau, which means he was the head of Hamas in 1997, associated with this school and living in North Virginia at the time, and his children went to the academy. And the comptroller of the school was also a Hamas official who shared an account with Marzouk. And so this is what we're looking at. These are the people who hang around for so long, right? Doing what they do and carrying out their mission for their handlers. And in this situation, we're looking at super deep state handler here in the critical state of Virginia, the center of intelligence in this country, and just a pre-positioning it for trying to defeat the attempt to oust the deep state from this area. So that's what's going on with Abigail Spanberger. So get involved in Virginia, folks. And especially the midterms are coming up. It's time to get really, really involved in your area. Precinctstrategy.com. Simple way to go and get involved. Find out what you can do, and the smaller positions are paramount, because this thing with all in New York City, right, the city council, it's going to turn all Democratic Socialists, okay, majority, going to rule the New York City Council, ruled by socialism. It can't be overstated enough what you can do by holding the line and literally getting off the fence and doing something. And sort of in closing down here at the end of the video, I wanted to quote my pastor, who over the weekend did just such a great job. Love him. You've seen him here before, interviewed on this channel. And what he had to say is, don't sit on the fence. He said, guess who owns the fence? Satan owns the fence. You're sitting on the fence, right? That moral being in moral limbo about what you should do versus, you know, worldly affairs versus your moral integrity and where you put your time and energy during this life and what you fight for. So don't sit on the fence because Satan owns the fence. I love that. So fantastic, and you can't stop it until the whole thing is done and routed out, you know, root and branch. And that's what Trump is trying to do, one methodical planned movement at a time. And to us, it can never be soon enough. But you look at the Leviathan that we're fighting against, and it is so massive that that we can't know all the machinations involved. But we know that it's a massive, massive fight. It's coming down, right? We've got the October 16th, No Kings thing. They're resurrecting that. Excuse me for even using that term. They're, you know, recreating that hall of baloney to kick off something. And of course, they're going for this May 2028 huge socialist revolution style situation here is their end game. And so, yeah, it's all very cheery, I know, but there is so much incredible good going on. And it's almost how we, you know, the reflection of the bad by the glare of the light of the good, that we see all of this bad and we know it so well and we can see it, you know, trust your gut and your heart intelligence. You know, it's why Trump is so effective is he's able to directly communicate with people's hearts and their guts, right? Because he comes from his. And you can always tell that when somebody's coming from that place, right, that it's not only, he always says common sense, but it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do. And so let's do the right thing, right? Get involved, be part of the solution, and just get busy for the midterms because things are ramping up. We're seeing the fight there in California with them trying to steal all the seats to, you know, supermajority style. That huge amounts of money, Soros money, just going right in there. No worries, just bring it right in. They want to be Massachusetts with zero representation for Republicans, and it's a big fight. So get involved in every way you can with what is your best gifts. You know what they are, and so go out and utilize them. Don't waste one little bit of them. Okay, live this life to the full, Give it your all. And so on that note, I'll jump here to my sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV, code YAFTV for 10% off and 15% off if you donate to the channel anytime. You get the different code and link sent to you for 15% off. And this is, of course, the incredible ESS60 molecule, named so because it's been used in all of the studies proving how much carbon-60 that's super uber pure can have incredible results to do with anti-radiation capacities. And the reason is because it gets into your cells and right into your mitochondria. So many products say they can do that, but it's a crapshoot, right? This lab in Houston, Texas is the best in the world, state of the art, incredible, just reactor style, emulating the heat of the sun, that creates these fullerenes and then super uber purification process that comes to give you this superior product. So check it out below. Everything you need to know. Certainly fighting inflammation, everything to do with better focus, better mood, better outlook, sleeping better at night. But then there's the big deals of the degenerative diseases, huge testimonials about MS, success with MS and other nervous system diseases, the big C, being bought up by the caseload there in clinics, okay, having success with protocols for people. Huge migraines. They're coming out with a new migraine study now where people with chronic migraines having huge success with this because it goes through your blood-brain barrier, okay, and it gets into the neurons. It does an incredible job. So check it out. These are the capsules. I give away 2 bottles every month out of the graces of C60 Evo that supports this channel. And if you're a donor to the channel, you get put in that giveaway random selection. So it's always one of my funnest things to be able to pick 2 free bottles to go out to 2 viewers. I love it. And of course, they have the MCT oil. This is organic coconut oil. And they source everything in small batches from single growers. It's just an amazing company. So check them out below. Check out their testimonials. Thanks for listening to me plug for my sponsor. So if you found something that was helpful about this video and you think gave you some new knowledge or whatever, please consider supporting the channel. There's ways to do so below, and it is so appreciated. I appreciate you. So get off that fence, right? You don't want to be sitting on Satan's little moral ambiguity stage, right? Get going, get busy. You are free, and I'll see you tomorrow.